Good morning and welcome to Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. My name is Trish Tonai, founder and host for the series, where we feature entrepreneurs and enterprise leaders who participate in Share Your Stories online. Today, I'd like to introduce you to Anthea Mumby, who is a coach working with families in business. And Anthea joins us today from Waterloo. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about the big pivot that she's made since sharing her story as one of our first 100 features. Welcome.
Thanks, Trish. Great to be here.
You know, I was reading your story today, and I know that we started this whole series in 2019, and life has changed a lot since that time. And one of the things that you shared in our guest blog was your book. So why don't you give us a quick update on the book that you co-wrote with Douglas, and then you can kind of give us a little bit of an idea as to how things have changed for you and your business.
Sure. So the book that Douglas and I wrote together is Insurance Exposed, What You Need to Know. And the reason, so we wrote that together in 2015, and we were celebrating our 40th year as an family-owned insurance brokerage. And we wanted to write this book to help people with hiring the right insurance broker, like giving people some really great tools to help them hire the right insurance advisor, because we know nobody jumps out of bed in the morning and says, yay, today's the day I get to buy my insurance or renew my insurance policy, right? It's confusing, it's complex, can feel very overwhelming. And so having the right advisor, the right professional working, whether it's the family or the business, it can take a lot of those issues away and just make it easier to sleep at night, knowing, the money that someone has invested in their insurance cost, which can be a pretty expensive, a pretty big investment on the line entry. If you look at your financial statements, that they sleep better at night and that they really feel confident about their insurance protection needs. So, yeah.
So that's really great segue, because I know that Douglas is continuing with Mumby Insurance Brokers, and you've now broken away and you've decided that you're going to try to help folks who are working in family businesses sort of increase their marketing programs and things of that nature. So tell us a little bit about that pivot. What was the light bulb moment that gave you the opportunity to say, I want to try something new?
Yes. So, that came from vision. It came from clarity around the vision of what the next chapter in my life would look like. And I decided that it really was the best time to sell some of the assets of the insurance business. And that now I would focus on being a consultant to family-owned business, because I've grown up since I was 8 years old, worked in family business, worked for my parents for 20 years. I have worked with my spouse for over 23 years. Been through a lot of ups and downs over the years.
Sure.
And we have a number of clients that are family-owned businesses. A lot of my personal connections are also other family-owned businesses. So I really have a very deep level of awareness and respect and passion for family businesses and some of the challenges that we go through, and some of the great opportunities that can also come out of working with your family, whether it's your spouse or sibling or parents, cousins, So that's why I decided to make this pivot to this the consulting business, to Dream Team Consulting.
So tell me a little, because you mentioned that you are obviously second generation in the business. So, you started working at a very young age, obviously being aware of the fact that your parents were in business, and then you kind of segued into that. So tell us a little bit about, because, when I talk to folks who work in family businesses, they say, I just kind of fell into it, it wasn't something I really planned to do. Wasn't a conscious decision. I just found myself at a desk one day going, oh my God, I'm doing this full time. Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So tell us how
Yeah.
that transition happened to you. How did you go from, post-secondary education and then found yourself working in the family business full time?
Well, I didn't actually get to that far to post-secondary education, because it was actually, funny story is, when we used to take typing class in grade 9, and right. So as soon as I learned how to type, like, the old
You were doing data
typing on the
entry.
typewriter. Yeah, exactly. That's when, and my dad and I kind of have two versions of this story. He says that my story is, my dad put me to work. Like, he basically said, you know how to type now, you can come into this office. It was in the basement of the house at the time, right? And he said, you can do the typing. And his story is, no, that I saw me, and I wanted to really, get involved and help him build this business. So it's somewhere in the middle, right?
Between.
Yeah, exactly. Like the truth often is.
So tell us, how did Douglas become involved in the business? Because, okay, so you transitioned into the business, and then obviously life happens. You got married, you started a family, and your husband became part of the business. So how did that transition happen?
Yeah, so Douglas and came the succession plan for my father, who had always specialized more on the life insurance side and the group benefit side of things. And my dad was, he was looking at the next chapter of his life, and we had tried hiring a couple of life insurance advisors as the succession plan for my dad. Didn't find people with the same core values. Like, the core value of the business was always around putting clients' interests first and not thinking about commissions or the money. Like, it was very much about, the heart of, like, taking care of clients and doing a great job with, clients, always putting them front and center. And so we were struggling a little bit with finding someone with a similar kind of values. And this is when Douglas came in, and he didn't know anything about insurance, but he had his own business. He had already been an entrepreneur. And it was just that, we knew, because of who he is as a person and the values that, and his willingness to learn and to be coached by my dad. He was, fortunate that there was a lot of mentorship there. That he would become a great succession plan, and that together then we would be able to grow this business successfully.
You bring up a really great point, and that is succession planning, because one of the things that folks in family businesses do, especially if and I'm sure that many of the folks who are joining us today are first generation entrepreneurs who may be in a similar situation where they're saying, okay, I've got this great business and I don't want to sell it, and I would love to be able to turn it over to a family member. So that puts you in a wonderful position to coach folks who are sort of making that transition to succession planning. So what would be some of the advice that you could provide to people who are just at that crossroad?
Well, I'm going to say start with the vision, because the clarity around the vision, everything it will start to fall in place when you have that clarity. Recognize that, especially in a family business, it can be very emotional at times. Especially like in my case, that, worked in insurance for 40 years. So it was very emotional at times going through that period, that transition. And so the emotional load on top of the whole, and part of it was worrying about my staff, like, okay, are my staff? Can I make sure that they are all offered new positions with the new company, which they were, thank goodness. So yeah, being aware that it's not transactional. Like it's really, it's not like, you know, again, this is your family, so this is your business. It's not a transaction. There is a lot to think about and to be aware of in terms of that emotional piece. And for me, you know, as a younger person to be selling a business was also about, well, what's the next chapter look like? Right. You know, because a lot of people, they retire or they sell and then they lose their purpose, right? Well, why get out of bed in the morning, right? For sure. So having that purpose and, you know, well, what's next, you know, and whether it's philanthropy or hobbies, or for me as a lifelong entrepreneur, like there's no way I'm going to you know, sit at home and you know, garden or read all day or something. Like, no, the word retired to me, I mean, the word retire actually means rendered useless or obsolete, I think, in the dictionary. So I don't use it. I choose not to even, you know, use that word. It's just like next chapter and next step, you know, what's the future with the vision. Next phase, exactly.
So tell me, who would be your ideal client? I mean, you know, the pivot into the consulting role, you've got all this wonderful business experience that you can share with folks, but who would you consider to be your ideal client?
Yes, so obviously, you know, family businesses that are growth minded, so they are looking to continue to grow. I've experienced working with professional and, you know, professional service providers. I have some other clients though that are not in that you know, specific niche. So it's really around, you know, growth minded, collaborative, because the other part of what I'm building is the mastermind aspect of it, where people are willing to kind of share, you know, in a small intimate group, but be open to coaching and sharing and collaboration. That's really important. So yeah, this kind of, you know, do we feel like we can do some amazing things together? Yeah.
So one of the things that we do in the guest blog, and I don't know, maybe your 3 words of advice have changed, but in the when you shared your original 3 words of advice, it was create a vision. So does that still hold true, or do you have some new 3 words of advice to share?
I still believe in creating the vision. And again, everything I believe comes from that place, comes from having that vision that's compelling, that keeps you going. That's just, you know, create that vision. Yeah.
So I want to thank you very much, Anthea, for sharing a little bit about the person behind the logo today, because I know that, you know, as you say, when you move into a new chapter, you go to the next phase, the what's next in life. You know, there's a lot of unknowns because you're stepping out of that comfort zone now and moving into an area where you can connect with people on a totally different level. So I certainly thank you for sharing your new experience with us in your consulting business.
Oh, thank you. It's been great to chat.
To all of you who have joined us today for this edition of Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real, I hope you've enjoyed our introduction to the person behind the logo. And if you would like to share your story in our marketing platform, feel free to visit shareyourstories.online. Thank you so much for joining us.